Hey guys and girls in the audience, how are we doing today? Got myself a nice little unit to show you today. Hope you'll enjoy. What I'd like to do is just run down. I got the kilowatt here, and the reason I got this is I was having an issue actually in my bedroom during the summer with a air conditioning unit, and when it would kick on, the lights, everything would just dim right down and then finally come back up. So I knew that it was really drawing one heck of a pull on my line. So I ended up picking up a kilowatt and then I plugged it into it. Really easy to use. You just power it. As of right now, I got it powered just from a little extension cord coming out of the wall. And right now I got a little heater unit plugged into it so I can run through the functions and show you guys kind of what's going on. Is what this unit is here. It's the kilowatt P3 edition. It is made in China. It is category 2, and it is strictly set up for 120 volts, and that's AC for us in America here. And your max amperage that it's willing to work with you on is 15 amps, and your max power is 1800 watts. So again, that's for anyone outside the US. This is specific unit is set up for 120 AC on that. So as we're going to look through here, right now we're just set on our voltage. We're at 119.7. Again, that's with the draw. I'll unplug it, and you see it bumps up to 121.8. That's what I'm getting out of the wall. Let's see here. Ain't worth showing you watts and amps and everything if there isn't something plugged into it. So what I got here, just an old little heater fan. As you can see here, nothing special. Just got the 3 settings. Off, speed number 1, which would be medium, speed number 2, which would be high. It's got a button so it can oscillate. And then you got your heat setting. It's actually like a thermostat almost. It clicks off and on. So we'll crank that right up so it doesn't turn off on us. And get her plugged in so you can see what happens here. Let you guys take a look at this screen and see live what's going on. Nothing like live, right? Gotta love the live. So right here, our voltage 126. Now we'll turn this thing on, and you see it draw right down. So we know it's drawing some amps because it's pulling down the juice on it. 117.4. Hope you guys can see that very well. Beautiful. That's what I like to see. $118, so it's bouncing up a little bit. We'll do amps. Yep, 9.09 amps. And again, the only thing I could draw a little more on is have it oscillate. We'll see what that draws. So it went up 0.19 to 0.39, almost 200 milliamps there. Just by having the thing oscillate. 49. 59. Almost 500 milliamps. Almost half an amp. Just by having it oscillate. Let's see, I'll unplug or hit the button to shut down the oscillate. We'll see if it bounces back down. I'm surprised that it draws that much. Yeah, shut it down. Not oscillating. That must have been the resistance in the wires. When they're heating up, they're going to draw a little more. So that's our amperage. We have 2 options here, watts or volt amps. So our watts is 1184. And our volt amps, that is basically, that's the same as dealing with power factor. Your volt amps is power factor, basically in a nutshell, without a whole long theory on it, is your apparent power and the actual real power that you're using. as it gets your phase gets shifted around a little bit between your phasing of your voltage and your current. Basically, it's right here. I'll draw it out here in a minute, but they get out of line is what it is through inductance and other things throughout the line. So here's our 1200 watts. Now our volt amps. Well, I'm sorry. This is watts now, 1200. So, and our volt amps is 1205. I'll bet you just showing you that the volt amps and the watts are so close that our power factor is going to be very high. And high is like 1. 1 is pretty much 100%, if you want to look at it that way. So we'll go to power factor. Here's our hertz. We already know that. 60 over here in the US. And yeah, 0.99 power factor. So a 1 is basically 100%. You're getting 100% of the power, apparent power, compared to the real power that you are using in that. And that's typically always true with the resistive load, which a heater is. So it's when you start using step mode power supplies, or switch mode power supplies and stuff like that. You have inductors and you're boosting current or dropping current. That's when you start shifting around your power factor here. And then you also have timed kilowatts per hour, which is neat because it lets you keep track of the time. There's our time right there. It's showing 15 minutes. That's the whole time I've had it plugged in. Now, once I unplug it, it goes back to 0, which is kind of nice. And when you go to do your energy readings on your next power bill, if you take a look at it, you'll see it in kilowatt hours. That's what you're charged. So much cents per kilowatt hour, and you can figure what each meter or what off of this, what any appliance or whatever you have hooked up to it is using. So a neat little thing. But so what I found, I'll shift this here. Hopefully you guys can still see it just over here. So what I found is this AC unit is what it was, the old, like from the 70s. They had the fake plastic wood front air conditioner, and man, when this thing would kick on, it would just draw everything right down. The lights, it would suck them right down to where almost like brownout conditions, if you ever been through that. So what I did is I drew up a graph here and plotted everything about that on here when it was off, but it was off but still plugged in, so it still actually technically was on, just like your TV is off, but you still have the standby light. It's still actually, technically, there's still power drawn that's waiting for you to sit back in your recliner and hit a button to turn it on. So that's basically what this was doing, it off, and then low, medium, and then high, which was the fan working with the compressor. And the numbers get pretty big actually in here. You can see right here I got 9.90, and that's amps, 1090 in watts, and the arrows next to it means it was climbing. And power factor was actually looking good though, for that being an older unit. Like I said, it was from the 70s, so I was getting 0.99 kilowatt hours, or that's kilowatt hours, but that should have been 100% power factor at one point on that. And all these numbers I got back in here are with 2 hours and 5 minutes of running time on that. So I just wanted to run it through a whole gamut is what I ran it through. Then I just changed with different things. You can see down here, here's a heating blanket that I had in low, medium, and high, and drawing 400 milliamps roughly. And the settings really didn't change it all that much. Now, I'm guessing that's probably because part of it was the line was already heated up, and then it just doesn't take it much more to go from low to medium or medium to high. So, and then out in the garage, in my dad's garage, there's 2 grinders, and I wanted to see what they were doing. Now, they got pretty interesting because this bottom one, this one right here, is a 1 horsepower. This thing's a big, it's stands up on its own stand and everything. It's a big beefy unit. Yeah, it's an 8.5 amp, and this small one right here, this quarter horsepower, was a 3.5 amp. Just typical dual-headed grinders, you know. Um, and I was messing around trying it without the capacitor and with, and see which would be better. And with no capacitor hooked up to it, with that grinder, I'm gonna say it's a 5-inch dual-headed grinder. I was getting a 0.71, so like 71% power factor. Now, when I did the calculations and come up with the capacitor to put on it, I was getting 0.97, and it was even starting off a lot nicer. Must have been using that kick from the compressor just to aid it, and so basically the best way to run it is the closer you can get to 100% is the best. So try to get as close as I can with that, and I'd say I did all right. And then if you look at the old one, now the 1 horsepower, which was it was a little bigger. I would say it was about maybe a 7-inch dual-headed grinder. Again, it's on the plate on the front, it says 8.5 amps. That thing was having a power factor of 0.25, so it's like 25%. You could almost say it's not true efficiency, because efficiency is a different formula, but it's really out of phase. And when I'm talking phase here, you guys, is what I wanted to show you is basically is all it is this. This is my AC voltage right here. This one here, right? On my sinusoidal scale. And now to be in phase with that, we'll say that I'm just a hair out of phase. That would be this. And this is my amperage here. And there's many things that could knock that out of phase, but the more you have that in phase is the more your real power and your apparent power are going to match up, and it just makes everything run a lot smoother and better, you know. I know especially if you end up having something like this, which is down here, and it's basically 180 out of phase, it's almost like it's fighting it at times. And if you're around enough motors and that, you can actually hear and pick that up if you've done it long enough. Takes a really trained ear to pick it up, but that's basically what it is in a nutshell. It's not overly complicated. Just you start throwing numbers and theory at it, then it gets really, really mind-numbing. But yeah, that's about it. So the kilowatt, it was I got this at Harbor Freight, which is a store local to us. I'm guessing it's like something like what you guys in Europe might have as I guess it's BJ's, something like that. But yeah, picked it up there. I think it was I think I paid $15, and that's with the 1-year warranty or something that come with it. And I will bust it open here in a minute for you guys, but I'll tell you, I was actually really disappointed. There's not much to look at in it at all. It's really kind of really disappointing, to be honest with you. But get back to it. We'll take a quick look. We'll see where our amps are now. Now we're at 10.03 and dropping now. And I'm still, again, at full power, as high as she'll go, as hot as it'll get. So it draws a quick little tibbit. You see it drop. Anytime you start seeing a voltage drop, you know you're honking some pretty good amps out of it. So we'll get this unplugged, and I'll just break it open quick for you guys and show you what's going on inside. Oh yeah, you can feel that wire getting warm. Yeah, that's a lot of amps. 10 amps is a lot of amperage. Already popped the screws. I just got to pop the plugs through. And again, there's not much to look at all. See the thermal fuse here. I see it was rated for 15 amps on that. And basically, if you take, I actually used to test them. You get them a lot in coffee pots and that. You take them out and you stick a heater to them. And you'll see that all of a sudden they'll pop open. They'll go open circuit on you or open line. And if you let them cool down over a period of time, then they'll re-trigger again, and then they'll start reading resistance. And that's pretty much, they're like a thermal fuse is exactly what they are. Here's a big honking capacitor. They must be using that as some type of capacitive dropper. Then to do all their sense and their sense wires and that, which is all under here. I'm not going to pull that apart because then all the buttons and the screen and everything is going to come out. But got a crystal. Here's our crystal. Looks like 4.19. That's going to be 4.2, I'm guessing megahertz. Beyond that, SKC. Here's a small capacitor, Zener diode. We got a big whopper right here. What is that? 20